Hey Antonio, thank you for showing up with us today. How are you this morning?
I am very well. Yes, I feel ready for it. Thank you for having me.
Great.
Pleasure.
Well, being ready for it, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your life course that brought you to this moment today. So you kind of know what this talk is about, and a series of events
hmm
happen to bring you here that you feel ready to have it. Could you just kind of give us a brief little narrative about what brings you to this moment in life?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Where do I start? I guess the reason why this felt like it resonated with me is because I've been going through a year of, I don't know, I guess taking stock of my life. I turned 40 this year, which
Happy
feels
birthday.
like, thank you very much. It just felt like quite a natural time to reflect. And because my sort of journey in terms of my work life has been quite kind of meandering, and has finally brought me somewhere that is closer to to what I want to do than I ever was before. It just felt like a good time to to think about how to further develop into the direction that I want to go in. So yeah, I don't know how much more. Would you like me to be more specific about my life journey
Yeah,
a little bit?
particularly when you see this interview as hopefully a kind of a turning point or a nudge into something that would change. What are the things that are happening in the shift that you'd like to see?
Well, I mean, I suppose, I mean, if I want to be kind of funny about it, I can say that I feel like my life has been like a sort of like a writer's block or a creative block, the whole time. So there's kind of like, the way I feel about it is, I've sort of moved around what it is that I kind of want to do, which is, in the specific, I think, work in film, and it's sort of something that I've just not I just don't engage with head on because of a certain element of fear, I suppose, and lack of self confidence, and sort of all the elements that kind of bring to something that feels like a block. So I don't know. I guess this feels like the time to unlock it um, because I have a good collaborator that I'm sort of starting to write with, but need some sort of push to kind of like develop, like further move in that direction. And yeah, this kind of year of thinking of it feels like a moment to basically think of the rest of my life. In Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like it feels like a crossroads. I mean, this sounds so cheesy, but yes, it does.
And then in terms of today's conversation, I mean, we only have 75 minutes
Yeah.
together, but what would be a really successful outcome after you walk away from this conversation?
I think anything that would be, I mean, what I'm hoping for, I guess, it's some insight as to what, maybe as to what, as, some insight, well, on the one hand, some insight as to where the block might be coming from, or perhaps more, I don't know, perhaps more usefully, something that is like some tools as to how to kind of, yeah, how to, mm, well, I'm trying to find sort of like the right. I mean, yeah. Basically, I want you to fix me.
That would be a good outcome if you're fixed.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe how
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
move
yeah.
forward somehow, like how to take some
Yes,
next steps in a
yes.
meaningful way. Okay.
Great. Okay. So we call this a deep inquiry interview on purpose because we do want to get under the surface of those things that might be blocking you. So this is the part where we say we do wish to take you there, but you, as an autonomous interviewee, I guess what I'm saying is that we would like you to take risks with us about where we go with this. But
hmm
if we feel like we're kind of going to a place that feels too personal or too uncomfortable, you feel free to say, okay, well, let's just stop it there. We're not doing a
Yes,
psychotherapy or anything like that, but we do want to get under the surface of it to really pull some things
of
out.
course.
So just
of
making
course.
sure that
I'm
you're
not.
on
I'm not
board.
intentionally. Yeah, I mean, I am intentionally not. Sorry, I'm just moving a little bit because I noticed that the light is a little bit kind of strong. But I am not afraid to. I mean, that doesn't scare me. But I will let you know if anything is too sore.
Okay, we
Sounds
can
good.
find a safe word for you, and then we can just stop and then go on
Yes.
to the next.
We are really, really keeping with that theme, aren't we?
So
Great,
let's
great.
talk about the creative block, because that's the first thing that you said, that one of the first things you opened this conversation with, which was that your whole life feels like it's been a creative block. What do you mean? Like, what's included in that creative block? What's going on there?
I think it's the idea that I've always been interested in well, specifically in film, but in creativity. And I've worked in creative fields. I worked in the art world, and for many years. And but even before then, since I was very young, I've been just almost very much living in a world that was very cinematic, or cinema filled with like love of film and all this kind of stuff. But somehow there's something in me that tells me that I am not. That like there's always been this voice since I was very, very young, telling me like, who are you to do this? I mean, it's quite sort of it's almost perfectly what people refer to as like a sense of like lack of self-worth. I was reading this book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Mm.
And like I kind of like I there are some tools in there that I think could be useful to me. And a therapist I was seeing a little while ago was sort of like recommending he was recommending this book and some of its tools. And some of it really applies so in a way that is almost like too textbook. It's annoyingly specific. And so yeah, the creative block thing comes from just it's like being behind. It's like, I don't know, it's like being at the starting line and not being able to kind of like start, or like there's a sense of, or being behind, being on one side of this looking glass and not being able to kind of go to the other. And feeling very much like a sense of connection with this thing, but somehow like there's a disconnect, and there's something that doesn't allow me to either to touch it or to be really a part of it, or it's kind of like observing it through glass.
So the sense of a
Does that
barrier
make
that you can
sense?
see through, but you can't reach through.
Yes. And I suppose it's that idea of what we think we are, or what we say we are, or versus like what we actually do, right? I mean, I just it's just something that I just struggle to make myself do it. And then this also connects to certain ideas that I've had, and I briefly, I think, have discussed with Aaron before, about like whether like something like an attention deficit could is something that is there. And so there's a sense of like a lack of ability to focus. And I don't know if this is going into like too much of a tangent of somewhere else, but yeah.
This is great. Do you want to dive in again?
Yeah, you say so. I get this kind of image of someone who's kind of standing around the edge of a pool for a long time and like really wants to dive into the pool, and maybe sometimes sticks his foot in. Maybe sometimes it's too cold. But I wonder if there was a time where you feel that you were in it, because it sounds like this feeling of being just outside it is a dominant feeling. But can you identify a moment where you feel like you were there, you were past the starting line? Or do you feel like it's always been one step ahead of you?
I don't. I wouldn't say. Yeah, I would say that I've always felt like it's been one step ahead of me. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I feel like I've been circling the pool for
Yeah.
forever. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you feel like if you haven't had an experience of being in it, can you imagine what it would be like to be in it? And do you imagine what it would be like to be in it? How that would feel differently?
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean, I do like. Obviously, I have thought about it, and I think about it, and I guess. I guess I don't know. I don't know if we can continue with the pool metaphor. Like it's there's different depths and there's different sort of like parts to the pool, and and in a way, I don't know where it is that I would be most comfortable in it. But I know that it's a world. I mean, it's like maybe yeah. I feel yeah. I guess that's the limitations of the metaphor. I feel like in a way I am I don't know. I'm getting lost. I'm
Okay,
getting lost with this.
let's help you with that, because I think maybe it's about clarity, right? Like maybe it is about what that thing is. And you also use the word comfortable. So if you're going to be in the pool, you're going to be uncomfortable. That's like the first rule. So there's the
Right.
there's the right. So I guess I want to start by dissuading you of the idea that if you're going to jump in the pool, you're going to be uncomfortable. So we're not looking for the comfortable part of the pool. We're looking for the uncomfortable
Did I say?
part.
Did I say comfortable?
Yeah, where I'd be most comfortable. Yeah. So there might be a comfort issue going on. We can find out.
Yeah. Sure.
But maybe it's, and maybe you meant that maybe it was accidental, but maybe it's also like, well, I'm not sure if it's a pool, right? We're not sure if the metaphor works. It could be something else. You're not sure what's past the starting line. So I wonder if we start with clarity a little bit, right? Like, well, okay, film, we like film, right? But it's big field, right? So like,
yes.
If it's hard to imagine you being in the pool, maybe it's hard to imagine what role that is in the industry, for example, like what you'd actually be doing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think there is, and that also connects. Well, for me, what that speaks of in relation to how I know myself is, I'm quite, I'm tentative. Or at least that's how I perceive myself. It's like, I'm not willing to say, oh, this is what I want to do, because it's almost like I want to be in, I sort of love that world for how I've experienced it, so much that I would like to find the place that I feel is right for me. And when I was saying comfortable, I mean, it is an interesting word and we can talk about that, but also what it meant was like, it was the idea of what is right, what would be a right place for me to be, where I could be of use. I have this notion of like wanting to be of use rather than wanting to necessarily take the risk to express myself or, express what I want, because I feel like that's almost, I don't know, not as relevant, or, there's this kind of fear of like, oh, but like, who am I to ask for that? Who am I to want to do that? I mean, that's a recurring theme. Does this make sense?
There's something interesting that my sense, and correct me if I've misunderstood here, but of being of service on the one hand, and then knowing what you want on the other, that these are somehow opposite. I don't know if, because the way that you put it was almost like these are choices and they sit in opposition to one another. And I would love to challenge you on that, because I think there's something around, if you have this creative impulse and this desire, in my experience with people who I've met who've been in music, art, poetry, there's often this sense that we get raised in cultures in which creative expression are seen as an indulgence of no value,
yes,
of limited product. You can't extract it in such a way that is useful to most of the structures that we have. So there's this sense that if you do it, it's because you're doing it for self-gratification, which may be part of it. And I think there's anything wrong with it either. But I think there's also something about when you look at the most beautiful art, or you listen to the most moving poetry or the most extraordinary music, these are things that people have done from the depths of their hearts or souls to express something that was deeply personal to them, that then creates a conduit for others to hold on to life or to express something that's that they find difficult to express. And so I think that when you are at your most personal, often that's when it's at its most universally resonant. And so there's something there as well about, is it really that you doing something that is expressive of who you are is in opposition with being of service. Because I think that actually maybe it's the opposite, that the closer you get to the core of who am I, Antonio, to do this? Well, who am I not to? If you've got this creative spark and drive, who are you to deprive yourself of the possibility to create in a way that might unlock things for other people as well as for yourself? Like it's there's a deep service in that, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how that lands with
I think
you.
that's that really it really does. And I think it's I don't know, it makes me think about what you just said makes me think about the fact that perhaps I have kind of created some sort of, it's almost like an armor where it's like I can't be too vulnerable and I can't get too close to that core because it's so raw and it's so that it's like it's easier to say in a way, be of service and not engage with it. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Can you say something about the rawness of it, that it feels like it's too exposing? Is that what you mean by the rawness?
I mean,
you can't put it out there?
It's I think it's like it feels childlike. It feels like I don't know, it feels it's like it's like that sort of getting to the core of that kind of like creative voice or creative need it's maybe also because I have undernourished it and I haven't allowed it to develop. Then it feels like it's very, very much like it hasn't, almost like as if it hadn't developed like a skin or like a kind of like a way to be in the world. And it's buried under under all these layers of like I'm doing things because I'm doing what's useful, and I'm working in an industry that is adjacent to film, but it's more advertising because it pays. And so it's all this practical stuff that I put around it. And then now I find myself, I don't know, this is maybe, again, I don't know if I'm going off on a tangent, but then now I feel like, very much like this armor that I put on, I'm just not really comfortable in it. I think this is also why this talk resonated, because I feel very much like, I feel angry. I think I feel quite angry that I have to, I feel I am quite full of, I'm full of quite a bit of anger. Yeah.
That okay, so there's a message in that, right? That there's anger. It sounds like there's an anger about feeling like you've had to put on this armor against this raw, vulnerable part, that you've had to keep this part of yourself out of the picture for so long. So maybe that part of you is kind of angry, like, let me out,
Yes.
Yeah, that part is angry, but also the problem, the thing is like, who has really done that? Like, I mean, as in like, I've done that nobody, I mean, I don't know. I'm not really like, I think I could, I could have made different choices. I don't think I haven't had like anyone breathing on my neck necessarily to be, so it's all here. Like, obviously this comes from background and it comes from,
I mean, can we just go into that a little bit, because people get their messages from somewhere, right? And there was a message that you will have received as a child. And often with people, you're probably more familiar with this than I am, but often with people in the creative industries, and I think particularly for men in creative industries, the message is, that's not for you. That's not a way to make a living. That's not serious. I mean, these are kind of generalities, but there might be something within your own personal experience that you felt you had to armor up for at a very young age, that you got a message about creativity, or do you have a sense of what that is?
That's I think we call that my mother.
Okay.
No, I mean, there was definitely, I mean, there was the idea that there was the idea that I couldn't, I wanted to go to film school, and film school was, it was going to be, I don't know, it was just not, I mean, I think I could have fought harder I could have done it, or I could have I could have convinced them to let me do it, my parents, but I somehow didn't, because because at the same time, this thing was instilled in me, that this thing was instilled. Is that right? It was, in me, that like that creativity was, like something that it was going to be too, uncertain a path, and so that, it comes from that. It comes from, like a sense of. So basically, I think the choice that I made was to first sort of like choose a very kind of like wishy-washy university course that I wasn't that interested in, and then find my way out by coming to London on an exchange program, and then never go back, and stay in London because I wanted to, I just didn't want to be where I was as a young gay man in southern Italy. That's really not where I wanted to be. But then what that meant was that it became immediately about sort of survival, as in like what happened was I just then ended up kind of like finding work so that I could, sustain myself. And then that became a sort of like the imperative. The imperative was practical because I wanted to be self-sufficient. And so that was, so I don't know, the feeling that I have a little bit, it's almost like I took myself back to like to a below zero kind of like level of, it's as if I had to kind of crawl my way back out of something. And I feel like maybe I'm hoping that now is the time when I can be above ground level. God, is this really dark?
It's not really dark. It's really insightful. It's interesting because I hear so much of your story I've grappled with, and I know other people who've grappled with, and this idea of kind of doing something because you feel you have to, and you need to be self-sufficient, and you need to kind of look after yourself and be independent and get yourself somewhere, whether it's moving from Italy so that you can be in a place where you can express more of how you want to relate to people, for instance, or whatever. And then getting to a point of adulthood, you said you turned 40 this year, where you are self-sufficient and you can make your own choices now. And that connecting with the anger, I would suggest, without being a psychotherapist, that there's a very good reason why at this particular moment in time, this anger is coming up. It's like, right, it's my turn. Let me out. Now's the time. And there is something, and I don't know if we'll get to this or if this is something that you feel. So if this is just a projection, let me know. But often when people get to this point, my experience has been that there's a sense of, if only I could have done this sooner. If only I'd made different decisions. If only all the way back. And actually the flip side of that is that if you are at a place where you've got all of this adjacent industry knowledge and you're self-sufficient and you've got this, it's almost like this kind of, depending on how it feels to you, like these stronger waves or volcanic eruption of creative energy saying now's the time coming out. It gives you a vantage point and a fuel and an urgency in some way and a poignance to express your creative impulse in a way that had you followed a different path, it wouldn't be the same. And so there's something quite precious and particular about you coming to this now, because there's all of this experience and your laser focus that means that you can make the jump. It just means that maybe it feels like a different quality of risk. And there's something also
that's
about,
very interesting.
Yeah, and there's a potency to this as well, because you're coming at this now, I would guess, again, at age 40, you're not thinking in the same way that you might have done when you were 20, which is, I have all this creative potential, I'm going to go and schmooze with it. When I was at Central St. Martin's, it was the white cube on Hoxton Square and all this schmoozing. Now I'm like, the world is fucked. How do I use my creativity in service of the things that I actually care about?
Yeah.
And that's powerful in a different way. So maybe my question to you is... No, go on, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, that really resonates. Sorry. What yeah.
So maybe my question to you is like, with this, you talked about this rawness and this childlike quality, and I think maybe in that there's kind of this innocence and this kind of, there's a power to it. How do you connect that really powerful sensation with what it is that you would long to be in service of? Because these are dance partners, they're not opposite to one another. So what do you most profoundly care about that you would like to put your creativity in service to?
I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean,
and it's
I
okay
would
not
think
to know.
about that. I mean, there's...
What did you just experience in that second? What
Well, I
was
mean,
that?
it's basically there's this. What was that? Because basically, that it's this thing of like feeling very insecure, but then also at the same time feeling quite like, I think slightly, I mean, the slight megalomaniac idea of like, I want to revolutionize the film industry. As in, like, I think one of the things that I'm thinking about recently quite a lot, the more that I learn about how the industry works by this, adjacent role that I have to it, is, for example, like, the sort of the waste element and the sort of expense element and this kind of like, how it's changed, and also how, the fact that like financing has become very difficult for like medium to small productions compared to, huge blockbusters of a certain kind, and blah blah blah. And I've learned by going to certain film festivals about very different ways of filmmaking that are a lot more sort of like guerrilla kind of filmmaking, or like very small scale kind of filmmaking. And so that would be, I think, like doing something that is like connected to that, or kind of, like the idea of fighting the monoculture with something that is like, the potential of a plurality of ways to make films, for example. That's something that I find really interesting. But then I'm like, then there's that voice inside me going like, you don't even know how it fucking works.
Okay,
So
like,
sorry.
okay, fuck that.
Yes,
fuck
you
that
can.
voice. For now, we really need to fuck that voice, right? And we also, there's been a lot of self-blame in a way. You said, I wish I'd fought my parents more. I wish I'd done something earlier. And it's like every time, and then you kind of, okay, fair enough to be wary of megalomania, right? But if you're always cutting down the fear of megalomania with an undercutting voice, you never give it a chance, right, to find out what's there. And you just expressed kind of an excitement, a possibility there, right? Which doesn't sound like megalomania. It sounds like an exciting idea, right? And what's really interesting is it's an exciting idea that's thematically linked to your own struggle, which is how things get blocked from happening, right? So you have an industry that's blocking shit from happening because of the way it's funded and whatever. So that on a couple of different levels. So I want to get into this a bit, like, so if we can, for the duration of the interview, and I think, sometimes we like to talk to people, 6 weeks later or something, and something you might want to try in between, is really identifying that you have an undercutting voice that comes in very quickly after an idea or an excitement or creativity. So let's just like put that aside for the moment, right? Just like, let's just not.
I hate to repeat myself, but we call that my mother. I'm sorry, no, that wasn't
okay. Yeah, well, psychotherapists like myself, the whole industry is built on everybody's mother. So
mothers.
But there's also a lot of mother blame. Dads have a lot to answer for it as well, right? But you made the best choice. You made the best choices that you could given the circumstances that you were in. Yeah. So, but at the moment we're going to say, okay, that's an internalized voice from your mother, and it's going to matter less to you going forward, because it needs to matter less if you're going to jump into that pool. Yeah. Now, what I think is really good news here, and now I get to throw in jargon, which I just love to do.
Go on.
So there are these two terms that I find really helpful, and one is called ego syntonic and the other one is ego dystonic, right? So ego syntonic is when something sits well with your ego, right? So you don't have a problem with it, right? It's comfortable, right? When it starts to become ego dystonic, your ego wants to push it out. It doesn't like it anymore, right? So it can be like procrastination can be really ego syntonic, like because it feels cool to watch lots of Netflix video and not burden yourself. And then when you feel like you're not getting anything done, it starts to turn ego dystonic, right? Like, I don't want to be sitting here watching Netflix anymore. I need to do something different, right? And your life situation at the moment, your what's the word you used? I wrote it down. But I can never read my own handwriting. It looks like tendentious, but it's a tentative. Your tentativeness and your walking around the edge of the pool is becoming really ego dystonic, right? So it was ego syntonic for a long time because it kept you from taking these risks. It kept you from feeling raw. It's now ego dystonic. So it's kind of saying you got to move, right?
Yeah.
You got to move. Yeah. And the reason why you haven't moved is because this internal voice on the one hand and fear on the other And I wonder if we
Yeah.
can just think a little bit about that fear, like the thing, it could be related to this idea that, you can't sustain yourself financially or whatever on that side. It might be more, probably psychologically
I mean,
more about this rawness.
I think the fear is that you want me to, shall I, I mean, I've got a lot to say about that.
Yeah, please go
The
for
fear
it.
is
You
like,
should be talking more than I
so,
do.
I mean, no, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just because really that is such a, I mean, it's the fear thing is so interesting because it's like, in a way, we were talking about the comfort thing. I mean, it's also, it's so comfortable to just, and like you were saying, it's like the ego symptonic thing is like, it's obviously been like that for like a long time. And it's like, I feel kind of like I'm doing, it's like I'm kind of like cradling myself in this way. The fear of it's shame, or like it's fear of like being like ashamed of something, or like it's fear of kind of like putting something out there that isn't make a failure. It's fear of of just, it's fear of like that thing about exposing that raw core, and basically people kind of like laughing at it, or people disregarding it, or it's that is that. And also, yes, fear of discomfort, fear of rocking the boat, because in a way, the boat just kind of goes, and like I have all my distractions, and this is the thing that it's like I don't. I don't hate my life, but like I increasingly find what I do for work just frustrating to a degree that is perhaps disconcerting.
Can I ask a question here? When do you feel most alive, most enlivened?
Okay, interesting question. I mean, there's a lot of things that make me feel alive. This is the other thing that also, like, I'm quite by my very scattered nature, I tend to. So, like, for example, this weekend I volunteered at Fringe Queer Film Festival in these events, but these events that are collateral to it, that are events that are to do with like kink and sexual, in a way, kind of sexual health adjacent, but not, the events themselves are more about different aspects of like queer culture and being queer. And like I basically, I mean, my role was just like volunteering and kind of venue managing for this association that is kind of hosting these events. And that makes me feel very connected and very alive in that sense. I feel very alive being at Venice Film Festival and watching, I don't know, 4 or 5 films a day, and kind of thinking and talking about them and analyzing them. And I think one element that is missing from my everyday life is probably a social element, which is like a big part of, like, I'm very much like I think I am extroverted in that respect, that is like I gain a lot of energy by being around people, and there's not much of it in my current work, in the way that I work. I spend a lot of time working on my own, and I think that's not great for me. So yeah, I feel very alive when I'm around people, and I don't know. Yeah.
You do know, because right? Well, it just happened again, right? You can watch it, and you can go back and watch the video. You get excited, right? You get stuck, and then you sound stuck, and then you get excited. So actually, when we're kind of talking about clarity, right? There is clarity happening here. The Fringe Festival, all that stuff you're talking about is exposing, and it is authentic, and it is social, right? So all the things that in another context is giving you fear, if I expose myself, if I'm, it's fearful, and yet in maybe a safer atmosphere, it's like, there I am, I'm being social, I'm exposing myself, I'm being authentic and transparent, and there's all this energy there, right?
Yes.
So it feels like, and I don't want to simplify it too much because I take the fear really seriously, but I wonder how much of the fear is a little bit made up, because actually when you're doing it, it feels good, but you've got some kind of equation going on in your head that if I were to do that in real life, like if I were to do that for money, or if I were to do that, for my job, it would be full of shame, or it wouldn't work, or I'm not good enough for it.
I think there's something about, yeah, maybe, I mean, I don't know if this is connected to, to like the way that I existed in my family or to being gay but there's something about, experiencing the world as something that is perfectly formed. I mean, without me in it, in a way. I mean, that's the sort of like, maybe that's a kind of, so that in a way it's like I love to experience it and witness it, but I don't know that I feel like I am inside it. Does that, I feel separate from it somehow. I mean, I don't
Is
know.
it a
Like,
question
does
of
that, as
belonging, or is
as
it
in that
that you don't feel you belong
it's
in that
something
world?
about,
Or
it's not that I don't feel that I belong, but it's more like, connected to what we were just saying. It's the idea that like, having any further agency in it almost like would disrupt it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm,
oh,
I don't know if I'm, yeah, or like,
Follow it deeper. Let's
or,
find out.
yeah.
um, yeah, like I love the experience because the experience is orchestrated by somebody else. It's a little bit like it's a little bit like that thing of I get a lot more stressed out being like, because I don't drive very often, but I used to drive a lot when I was younger. So now when I get behind the wheel, having that level of control is really stressful. But if I'm on a roller coaster that's going like a crazy speed of an hour, I feel totally fine because I don't have to control anything. Does that you
Okay.
know what I mean in relation to this? That it's like if someone else is driving, then it's like it's a lot easier to enjoy that experience. But if I have to be the agent, then it's like, ah,
But it's an important problem, right? Because there are a lot of people that say, and I kind of agree with it, that sometimes when you make something that's a passion, your career, you don't get to enjoy, you don't
mm,
get to go to the Venice Film Festival and enjoy it as a person if you're organizing
yes,
it or you're on the jury or you're submitting a film. It's a different experience and it can be fun, right?
of course,
But I'm wondering if maybe there's actually a preservation thing going on for you as well. Like I want to preserve this world
Mm.
that I can participate in as a punter, but I'm not sure I want to. I'm just like, I'm not sure that's true. I'm saying try it
yeah.
on,
I
right?
mean,
Like I'm not sure if I want to be doing.
I mean, I think that yeah. I think the problem then becomes that I experience this with so many things because I am quite like, I mean, I don't know, you could say in a positive way that I am interested in many things, or like that there's a versatility and a kind of like an openness in me. But then at what point does that also become, just like exhausting in that sense of like nothing is actually in focus. It's everything is
Mm.
kind of like everything is like a potential or everything is like something that I'm experiencing in this way. So I'm just wondering whether, I mean, and this is actually something that, I mean, obviously our time is limited, but like, this is one thing that I want to kind of think about is to what degree do I need to what degree I should fight my own nature, which is to be this scattered and try and kind of like focus it more. And to what degree actually is this very nature that makes me the excited person that I am and brings, that I can put energy into different things in a way that perhaps is different than the way that we kind of think about. I don't know. I mean, now this is, yeah, it's going.
No, but I could. Sorry, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, do you want to go? I can come back to the point.
Okay, remember it. Yeah, because this isn't therapy, and we can be much more directive here, and not like explore it, ad nauseum.
Go.
Like yes, you should, right? So what I would say is that this kind of scattershot approach is it's your superior way of being in the world. It's the way in which you're comfortable, and that you will benefit from developing the focus and the impact, right? Which is harder for you. It's like writing with your less dominant hand, right? So I think what's unsatisfying for you is that place in which you're comfortable, your personality style, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just dominating everything. And that to the expense of a part that is about to find focus, taking risks, puncturing that plexiglass that stands between you and the starting line and seeing what that feels like and staying in there long enough to feel uncomfortable before reverting to the scattergun approach, which is comfortable for you. I think the messages that are arising here is that, and I use this word like technically the inferior part, the unpracticed part of yourself needs some muscle, right? You need to kind of lean into that and feel the discomfort of that, so you know you're giving it a good try. That's what I think.
I second that.
I like
Natalie
it.
seconds.
I like it.
It's so funny.
No, I mean, it all makes sense. No, please, you go on.
It's interesting because, like, hearing, this is one of the things I love about these sorts of conversations, is hearing you talk about the psychological structures and dynamics behind the lived experience of it. It's like another level of reality. So, like, when you talk about being interested in many things and having all of this excitement around all sorts of input and all sorts of creativity and curiosity, there's something very energizing about that. But there's also something really curious about, and I did this, so I kind of from lived experience, of like making a commitment, even if it's just for 3 months, to show up, for example, for a course where you have to be at the same time, at the same place, every single day from 9 till 5, but in service to something that you're going to practice. And you're talking about building up that muscle, the practice of, I'm going to do, say it's just a foot in the door, film school for 3 months. You just do a term. And it may or may not be that through the course of those 3 months, you realize that there is a joyful struggle in engaging in that repetitive task of learning new things, where your brain is taken to the edge of what you know and what's comfortable and not comfortable. And that all of the other stuff, it doesn't fall away, but it's just your anchor point drops in. And suddenly, yes, of course, there's always distractions and the rest of it, but your primary focus is on this beautiful, joyful, messy, painful thing that you're developing, so that then you don't want to be spending all of your energy in these other places that you can choose to. But there's something about that kind of, there's the practice, the perseverance, and the struggle being something which you want to engage in. And I found that happen for me with this course that I did in Barcelona. And it was a revelation. I've never liked schedule, don't like hierarchy, didn't want to be told what to do. And within 3 months, I was like, this is like, I've never experienced a joy like this. And a discomfort like this, and an aliveness like this. And it's that kind of childlike place of, oh my God, there's a whole world here for me to explore. And there are people who can teach me, and I can learn quite quickly because I'm an adult and I have the skills and the focus to see the value and the beauty and the poignance in it. So like, I just want to say, find a course. If it's filmmaking or if it's another specific thing, a starting point, find it and just do it.
I mean, and this is definitely part of. I mean, I am looking into it. I think the sort of, I mean, and I know that what I'm about to say sounds like a yes but kind of thing, but there are elements that I want it to be a course that is a decent course rather than something that is, something that I feel that I can gain something from. And also, on the other hand, I want to make sure I'm because of this like attention deficit or whatever it is that, like, I don't know how we want to call it, but I mean, I've always struggled to sort of like focus on studying, on academia. Like it's never been something that's come natural to me. So I am very concerned about putting myself in that position and not being able to get stuck in. So. But obviously, it's a risk that I think is worth taking.
I think there are two elements to consider. So one of them is that fear about whether you can do the thing that you sign yourself up for and what kind of support you might need to do that. And I think structures are really important, which is why courses can be really important. But on the psychological side, which I think it's related to attention stuff, but I think it's different, is this idea of tentativeness. That you really need to address the tentativeness, which means to do something rather than hover, right? And while I think there's a valid fear, like if you're going to sign yourself up for, a very expensive master's program or something, then, it's worth a degree of research, right? And I don't want to use the word tentativeness, but finding out what you want to do. But there are lots of things that can be done in the meantime that break through tentativeness, right? So you can learn and get support to deal with, if it's an academic route, it's an academic route, or learning about whatever it is that it is. Like I feel fully confident that whatever obstacle might be in the way, you can work with it. Okay. But before you get there, you have to get off the pot with the tentativeness, right? You have to choose something, even if that's like speaking to the course convener of 3 different courses that you've been looking at, or going to an open day, or booking a weekend, video workshop, or so, like, I just feel really, there's a real doing, like, there's a real doing thing here, right?
Yes.
Like, just do it. Something a bit Nike, but
wow.
But you can also stack your interests, because it doesn't, when we have multiple interests, sometimes they are in tension with one another, and it's about kind of atomizing our attention. But I think sometimes we can stack our interests together so that the motivator is stronger. And you mentioned earlier the weekend that you were just engaged in, where it was the fringe, it was kind of the elements of kink and volunteering and connection. And so I wonder, maybe that's an interesting place to start having conversations. If there's a particular group of people that you're like, I really enjoyed working with them, even just a conversation with them saying, I'm exploring my options to look into filmmaking. Where did you train? Would you recommend it? What did you like? And then that kind of creates more of an entry point, which could be maybe satisfying on various different levels. And then if it's people that you like and that you feel connection with, chances are the recommendations are going to be better. So there's also that filtering thing, which I've certainly found helpful. What do you feel about that?
I think that's true. And what is it? What?
We were like watching some smiles, some cogitation going on in you.
No, I mean, I was just thinking that it's that it makes sense, and that it's right. And then, I mean, now I'm thinking a lot about the sort of about the tentativeness, because I think it is the issue. It is the it's something that it's the block. It's like, it's sort of, or it's, at least it's how it manifests itself. Obviously, the deeper roots and blah blah blah. But it's definitely what you Natalie were just saying about talking to people that I just had the weekend with. I mean, I'm just so nervous about even expressing the desire to do that, to do what I want to do. I mean, I need to.
Are you nervous to have the conversation with someone, to like text someone and say, "Hey, can we meet up for a coffee? I have some questions."
No, I mean, probably in reality, actually, like when you break it down like that, no, it's like, but it's like quite easy to create this sort of like giant, conglomerate of things, rather than just going, oh yeah, this is just actually asking a question.
Can I reframe it for you? Let me reframe it for you. That might be helpful, right? I think the problem that you're presenting is like a life problem, right? Like, what am I going to do next? Like, that's a very big question. It's a very serious question. But I think maybe what we're suggesting a little bit, and I'm going to use the word play, right? Is that play for a while. Like, you don't have to make a big life decision. But what I see happening is that you have what you call the megalomania, right? You have the arising of an idea or an energy, which immediately gets pressed down by shame or fear, or can I make that into a living, or what big choices in life am I going to make, right? Yeah. And what I'm saying is, actually, you can just play for a while. You can like put aside tentativeness, try something out for a weekend, have a conversation with someone. It doesn't mean that's your first step to your new career. And what you're doing there is you're allowing the energy to rise around this excitement, and then letting it start to push you in a direction. And I would frame it as like this child, this kind of shameful child, who needed to get away from his mother and kind of armor himself up. You're giving him a gift of play, right? It's just like, okay, you don't have to make a living out of it. You don't have to make major decisions, but try that and see how that feels, and try that and swim in the shallow end for a while. And then you can get out. If it's cold, get out, put a towel on, right? But like, don't take it so seriously. Like, don't be tentative, right? And don't turn non-tentativeness into an overthought, serious, overwrought thing either. Just like, well, I'm going to play with some ideas for a while.
I love that.
Yeah, I think the taking it seriously part is also, there's something, it's so, like, I mean, it's kind of so inappropriate to take it so seriously.
It's like, what happened when you were younger, right? It's like, don't play. Like, for goodness sake, don't go into film and like have a career in play. Like, take it seriously, do something you could, it's like, okay, you're grown up now. You can decide to play and to support yourself at the same time,
Yeah, I mean, and like I think the positives. I mean, the positive to this, it feels, I I do feel I don't know, pulled or pushed in that direction more now than I ever did before. I mean, there is a question of like, why not before? Why there is a question in my mind that is like, why why what has led me down this like such a weird path to get to it? But it does feel like a time that is right in so many different ways to explore that.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
wouldn't
good.
waste my time there, right? Like we do the best we
Yes.
can with the skills we have at the time. And we're having this conversation now because the conurbation of energies that are pushing between syntonic and dystonic and fear and progression are kind of at a tipping point. So now is where you don't want to prevaricate. You know that you prevaricated before, you've been tentative before. Now it's like, okay, using that information, do I want to be comfortable and frustrated or uncomfortable and afraid?
And joyful and alive. Because it's also like, if you make that literally just the first step.
It's so grim.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, those are, I don't like those. I don't like you. I don't like those options. Yeah, Nathalie, you
She's
tell
good
me.
cop, I'm bad cop. That's how it works.
No,
yeah, literally.
There's also this
wow.
kind of, there's this, and I'm going to frame it maybe another way, which I find sometimes quite helpful is, life is impermanent. We don't always get these choices. You have this precious moment right now. There's a reason you chose to bring this up in conversation, that you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable conversation to be able to have the chance to bring this voice out and to take that step, to be vulnerable, to be raw, and to say, actually, I do feel angry and I do feel creatively driven. There's this beautiful kind of urge that is just so ready to be met. And you're right there at the edge. And this is the first step. You've already taken it, because if you hadn't kind of taken the chance on this conversation. So one thing I kind of want to raise, I was reading about snakes recently. I know, I like symbolism. Sure. I like, and I really like snakes. And one of the things I was realizing was about kind of the series of transformations is that bit before the skin sheds, they've already grown too much and the skin's too tight and it's really fucking uncomfortable. And some of the bursting has to happen somewhere, right? And the conversation can be the bursting point. And it's because there's that need for growth and for change. And there is that tender underbelly and it is that rawness and it is going to be uncomfortable. And yet it's necessary for life. And this is it. You're longing for life. And this is a very exciting place to be. And it may just be a metaphor. Question. I
like that image. I like that. I think that image, yeah, is going to stick with me. Yes.
And and it takes a while for the skin to shed and the rest of it, but some of the stuff is going to feel quite, new and risky. But you're hungry, so like that's the point. And maybe it's a question of making those first few steps. This is one. Another step might be sending a couple of texts to the people that you're with on the weekend and going, let's just go for a coffee. I have questions. How do you love what you do? How do you balance this? Asking the questions that you have of yourself that play in your mind, which is, did it start out for you as something that you wanted to be a career? Did it start because you were wanting to play? Like, how do you juggle these different needs and drives? And where would you suggest I go to find out research on? Or who do you suggest I speak to? That's one big one. It's, if someone knows someone who's higher up in the industry that could advise you and give you some insights and some mentorship, that's, especially when you're a bit, more experienced, you're 40, I'm 40. We know people in industries from the adjacent positions that we're in that can lead us to greater insights more quickly because you have that kind of lateral network. I mean, there's lots of things you could do. I don't want to kind of...
And people...
I'm very excited for you if you can't tell.
People want to help. People will want to help you when you ask. People. Yeah. I find, who are in those positions to be able to help people are often quite generous in leading people along.
Yeah.
Yes.
You seem. I feel a readiness here, Antonio. I feel like there's a readiness in you.
I think it's interesting because obviously like the when we talk about things like the tentativeness and all that kind of stuff is like that's definitely something that's there, but it's there to a much lesser degree than I think that it used to be. And I feel it's interesting because I feel like my boyfriend kind of can't like understand where I get my energy from. I mean, I feel very much full of energy, like in this sort of last. I mean, I've always been quite quite energetic, but it's something that seems to be, I don't know, there's this real surge in the last few months or in the last year, or and it can manifest itself when it gets frustrated, or when it gets kind of like not when it doesn't have a chance to come out in the right way, then it becomes frustration, and it becomes anger, or it becomes something that is like, I mean, anger maybe is a strong word, but it's just, I mean, it is anger, but it's like, yeah, it's just there, all this kind of, I feel
waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you have to
like
follow that energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, when you're saying earlier, and I ask myself, well, why didn't I do this before? The question is, what could happen different now, right? So you feel the energy, you feel the tentativeness. So every step forward you take, you're likely to have the conflictual energy push back, the fear, or the self-image, or the voice of your mother, or whatever it is. There's always kind of a reflexive, but you identify that and you say, okay, well, the way I've handled that historically is to be kind of tentative. So experimentally, I wonder what it would be like if I were less tentative in this moment. And like I said, they can be really minor things, like, well, I'm just going to go to this thing, or I'm just going to talk to this person, or I'm going to email this organization, and I'm not going to be tentative about it. So kind of like,
I think
moving
it's
into
well, it's like what the therapist I was seeing would call like outdated coping strategies, right? It's like that thing of like, it's something that like, the tentativeness is something that I used to, I think it was also something that was probably connected to, like my first few years in the UK, when I was, when it took a really long time to kind of understand, I don't know, to understand communication and sort of cultural signifiers, and like, even
culture.
though like, it really fucking is, yeah. I mean, yeah, I like, yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, but this sounds very positive.
Well, since it feels like clarity, like we've been kind of moving towards clarity, maybe in this stage of the interview, we think about maybe some specifics about what you might think about doing following this interview. And if we were able to have a chat with you in 6 weeks' time, what kind of, I mean...
Okay, so yeah, so in 6 weeks' time, so what, as in having some goal, or like things, action points?
Yeah, go for it. What's one thing that you can start, that you could do today off the back of this conversation, that would let that kind of anger step out the way?
Well, I mean, in a very sort of like, well, I mean, yeah, in a very what would I do? In a very practical way. I mean, like the idea of looking at courses is one thing that I've been doing, but not with enough, maybe, I don't know, I haven't really followed up properly on it, but it is occurring, and I will do that. The idea of talking to someone, I mean, I'm just thinking about who would be a good person, or who would be good people to talk to, but I could send some messages to some people to have a conversation with them. Not tentative.
Are you feeling a little nervous?
Well, I mean, it's more like, I am allowed. I mean, what I was doing this weekend was not, I was working, I was volunteering in part of the festival that was not very film related. So that maybe it wouldn't be those people, but more like, I think there's other, well, I mean, I know that there's other people that I can speak to about it. And I will.
So maybe one of the first steps is writing a list, like all of the people. And the other thing I want to say is like, especially the people that feel beyond your reach. And I say this being quite tentative. I had an editor who said to me, and she made a bit of generalization, but it was very helpful at the time. She said, these Gen Z authors that come in, they just reach out to everyone. They don't give a shit if they think they can reach them or not. They just send emails. You should do that. And I'm like, I couldn't possibly do that. She said, yes, do that. And I reached out to 22 people to interview for this book, including some people I thought I would never get access to. Every single one said yes in some form or other. And I was like, okay, well, clearly I was laboring under a complete assumption. So especially have like the list of the people that would be amazing, but like beyond your reach in inverted commas, and reach out to them as well. And like
Okay.
that's the
Okay.
play space. It's
Yes.
like, right, who can I probably not get,
I
but
think.
fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely like a few people I can think of already that, yeah. So I'll make a list. I'll make a list of people
Okay.
and I will contact them.
By Friday.
Ooh, now who's bad
Okay,
cop?
fine.
Yes, because otherwise nothing gets done, especially with the tentativeness. So 2 lists,
Yeah.
friendly,
I think
slightly risky.
what I was gonna say is like today I think I've been put on like I've got the rest police. Like my boyfriend is like, you need to, because I mean I've had a week that's been like absolutely insane. So today I think I will just like decompress. But yes, by Friday, by Friday I will have contacted the people. A list of between 10 and 20 people.
Great. On
Yeah,
each
that's
list?
fair. That's
or...
ambitious.
Yeah.
It's ambitious. Yeah, no, that's fine. And then I mean, yeah, and then the core, the sort of like some course research. So maybe also come up with a list of potential short courses, perhaps. Yes.
I'm writing a note of this, and I'm going to
Yes.
email you on Friday to see how you've done.
Okay. And then what else?
What
else?
And then what else? What happens
And then what
after
else?
you've listed the people?
No, I mean,
you've
because we
contacted
were
them
talking about you were talking about the 6-week window originally. I mean, obviously not for these 2 points, but in general, like what can happen in 6 weeks, kind of thing, or what can one do in 6 weeks.
I think in the short
But
term.
I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess this is obviously like seeds to then what happens from this, right? It's like making a list, contacting people, then hopefully meeting the people, and then yeah.
But
yes.
I'd make on the kind of psychological side another suggestion, which is this play idea, right?
Yes.
It would be really nice for you to be able to play, even in your mind, and fantasize about what things could look like and what you could do. And I think what you will notice is that if you allow yourself to do that, it's like you're going to be inviting these contrary voices again. You're going to be inviting the doubt in the tentativeness, in the who are you to think you could do that? But just in an idea space, and I don't know, if you're doing the Julia Cameron thing, it could be about writing it down. It could be about making voice notes, whatever it is. It could just be about making an imaginary career plan, but allowing the image of possibility to build and really working hard to push away the thing that wants to keep quashing that. Like every time you notice the mother's voice, every time you notice the shame, every time you notice the it's not for you, or what do you know, or how could it be? And it's hard because it's, it's like reflexive, but it's like gently push it away.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give my inner child this gift of exploring what he might have wanted to do before he left Italy, right? When he was choosing, if he could have chosen his way forward, I'm going to make space to find out what that could have been and take off the armor. Because that's going to be your motivation. That's what gets people to jump in the pool. Not like I should be in the pool or I feel bad that I'm not in the pool. It's like, I really want to fucking be in that pool now because I've so allowed this energy to consume me that motivation is intrinsic now. I know I've got some clarity about that. Don't know if it'll work. Scares the shit out of me. Also feels exciting, right?
Yes.
Like 6 weeks to build a head of steam of possibility. Right.
And actually, to build on that point from a very practical perspective, I had a coach a while ago who really helped with this, and I really didn't want to hire an assistant. I was like, I don't want to hire an assistant because I'm worried about delegating. She's like, what's your big goal? What's the thing that you would love, like the dream you would love to come true kind of thing? I was like, to have enough time to do my painting. It's like, right, well, that means that you need to figure out what you're paying attention to. So she got me on a piece of paper to write down in red all of the things I was scared about, all of the things that I thought, like the shame voices, the guilt voices, the should voices. It's like, well, because I need to make a living, or I'm worried about if I delegate, it will lose time. All of the things that stop you in red. And once I got all of that down on paper, then in green or black ink, or whatever you like, it was like, what are the things you're most longing for? What would this give you? If you take this shot, you do the course, it's like, I discover something about myself, I learn new skills, meet new people, I get to express my creative voice. And I found that I couldn't stop writing. And so in the end, I had this kind of cluster of red words and this whole cloud of black words. And I was like, oh shit, when I've written it down and it's not just swimming around in my head, I can see how much longing there is for some change. And it's not that you'll have a massive mountain, but it might just be that it kind of gives you a different quality of perspective. If you find that you kind of are holding too much in your mind, to just write it down in the 2 inks.
Okay.
And then really focus on the most important ones in the black cloud. It's like, it's life. You're giving yourself a new lease on life. And that's bigger than all of those voices.
That sounds like a good exercise. Yes.
You don't have to do that. It's just if you find yourself getting a bit tangled,
I like it.
It can be quite helpful.
Yeah. Absolutely. I like that.
Yeah.
What?
I just said it's just bad. Like, makes me feel like the oldest person in the room, which I am. Like, the expression during the Nixon administration, which actually was before my time, but they were still talking about it when I was a kid. Follow the money, right? If you wanted to find out who was committed the crime, right, you follow the money. But I always like the expression "follow the energy," right? So even in the anger, or in this kind of in the black and green writing, right, you want to follow the energy, and then again, when you notice the quashing element, which is, I think, is the big part of your struggle that we've talked to today. That's what you need to like. It's actually more of a letting go than a squeezing, right? So it's like the energy is an opening feeling, the quashing is a rigid feeling. So as soon as you notice the rigidity, breathe into it, loosen it up, and allow the creativity to go, and just keep following that energy. The anger, even the shame, it's like even if you follow the shame, you'll find its source, and you'll know that its source is old and it's not relevant now. It's an old story, and then actually you can start kind of fresh. So just don't follow the energy.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah.
So we're going to move into our quick-fire close now, Antonio. We're going to ask just a few short questions. No, you're done through the hard part. Yes. You're mostly through the hard part.
Okay.
And if you're happy to have another conversation, maybe in 6 weeks, we can find out, if you've been able to do any of this, or what happened, or what got in the way, and we can do a little check-in.
Absolutely, yeah.
But would you like to set us off? So these are just relatively short answers to relatively short questions.
So how are you feeling about our conversation today?
I feel very positive about the conversation today. I feel it's been very helpful. I feel good. I feel very much like I feel on the edge of my seat for like ready to pounce.
Oh, I love that. That's so exciting.
Excellent. So in being ready to pounce, what is a worry that has arisen? What is one of the main worries that would be arising in the next 6 weeks for you to kind of start doing what you need to be doing?
Well, first of all, that my laptop is running out of battery, so I will connect it to power.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Because it's not very. I apologize. I should have done it before. But no. What? So I mean, my worry would be. I mean, a worry that is connected to the things that I'm supposed to do in the next 6 weeks. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, or like as the what would you say is the contrary energy to the good energy that you get out of this conversation? Like, I feel really great about this, but I'm worried that.
I mean, like I guess, yeah. Like the worry is that what we're discussing is making like a shift that is quite fundamental from hovering to acting. And my worry would be, my worry is to be kind of, I have this idea of like almost like as if I'm in this kind of like blob that I'm kind of like trying to kind of get out of with this action, and the blob will just reabsorb me. That's sort of like the fear.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yes. So that's the contrary force, right? So that's just, we want to keep our eye gently and not too intensively on when it wants to pull you back. Feel the ego dystonicness of the drawback, right? It's like, actually, that might feel kind of comfortable, but it's the comfort that I don't want to be.
Yes. Yeah, don't get back in the old skin.
Yes.
Do not get back in the old skin.
Yeah. That sounds gross. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now that bad cop's been talking about worries, we need to change these questions around. I'm always fear, anxiety, shame. Let's talk about excitement.
Yeah, what are you most excited about? And you're young, Antonio, in there. What's he feeling about the possibility of this exploration and new play?
What am I most excited about? I mean, like, I I don't know. It's funny. Like for me, it's almost quite a tricky question in the sense that it's like I don't really like to have. It's almost like there's something in me that doesn't like to have expectations, or like I don't know. Like I feel like I do feel excited. I feel excited at the idea of exploring and finding what it is that where this takes me to, or like what I'm excited to. I am excited when I think about where I am at the moment. In general, I'm excited about the idea of what the next 10 years are going to look like and what I am going to be doing. But I don't know. I can't quite visualize it. Does that make sense? Like I can't really. I don't know. I'm excited to go on the journey, but I'm not. But I'm very aware that I don't know where the journey is exactly gonna lead me to.
I mean, amazing. That's
that
adventure,
sense.
Right?
Yes, that's the unknown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So excited for the journey, as yet unknown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I guess I could expand on that a little bit, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Let's go.
I think it sounds like it's that similar process that it is hard for you to get excited because this contrary force feels like it comes in quite like watch out or.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, like, no, I think what I'm trying to say is that, like, the excitement is definitely there, but like, what I'm most excited about, I mean, I'm really excited about the process and like, I'm excited about like the I'm excited for the next step, but I can't be excessively specific because I don't know. I'm getting really lost right now.
But that's okay. You don't know yet.
Let it settle in. Let it settle in.
Yeah.
Okay, we know you're going to go into a rest today because you told us. But after you rest today, what's the first step you're going to take? What's the first like objective step you're going to take as a result of this call?
Of from what we discussed.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah. I mean, I will definitely. I mean, this is probably something I will do today. Is start looking at some short courses. Maybe in some really lovely locale too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Like as in, yeah.
Well, this one moved to Barcelona to study art, so I think she's kind of the person.
I mean, I am cheering you on to pick the nicest place.
I have to be kind of careful as to, I don't know, the place that I pick could also be a great source of distraction. I am easily distracted, so maybe it needs to be something like remote.
Right. Greenland. University of Greenland filmmaking course. Okay.
Maybe something like that. Yeah.
Well, I hope you let us get in touch with you maybe in I don't know, 6-ish weeks, couple months, and just kind of see how you're getting on. Yeah.
I think that would be great. Like, let's do that. I like the idea of because otherwise it's like I'm not going to do it for me. I'm going to do that for you. Like the goal, setting an external like a goal for an external. To yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, structure always helps. Well, Antonio, thank you so much for taking the time to show up with us today and being so honest and authentic with us.
It's been such a joy. That. This is such an exciting moment.
Oh, thank you.
Honestly,
I feel really hopeful. I feel a readiness.
I'm very grateful. This was great, and you both were lovely. So thank you very, very much.
Great. Well, we'll speak to you soon.